Hey everyone, before we dive into the story, quick reminder, if you enjoy this kind of content, hit that subscribe button. It's free, helps out the channel, and ensures you never miss a video. Now let's, using a throwaway account for obvious reasons, but I need to get this off my chest. I'm Maya, 37, and let's just say family dynamics aren't always sunshine and rainbows. Growing up, I was the second act in someone else's show, the kid who was always expected to step aside, so the star could shine. And that star? My brother, Liam. Things weren't always like that. For the first 6 years of my life, it was just me, mom, and dad. We weren't perfect, but I got bedtime stories, trips to the zoo, and birthday parties with actual cake and candles. Then Liam came along and everything changed. He was born premature, tiny, fragile, and constantly sick. Suddenly, our house became a battlefield against germs. Bleach replaced air freshener, and I learned that a single sneeze could send me packing to my Aunt Sophie's house. I didn't mind at first. Sophie let me stay up late watching cartoons and taught me how to bake cookies. But after the 10th time I got shipped off for having a runny nose, I started to understand I wasn't being protected. I was being pushed aside. By the time I hit middle school, Liam had grown stronger, but the favoritism didn't fade. Every school event, every award ceremony, it was always, we'd love to come, honey, but Liam's got a big soccer game. Or, we can't miss Liam's recital, you understand. Meanwhile, I racked up honor roll certificates and spelling bee trophies that no one ever clapped for. I still remember the night of my 8th grade talent show. I'd practiced for months, learning to play Hallelujah on the violin. But just as I was about to head on stage, I saw Mom's text. Liam has a fever. We can't make it. I played my heart out that night, to an audience of strangers. 2 weeks later, Liam's C-team soccer game had my parents and both sets of grandparents cheering from the sidelines. High school wasn't much better. I buried myself in books, learning everything I could about classic literature and vintage art. Turns out, escaping into the world of old masterpieces was easier than competing for attention I'd never get. On weekends, I'd help Aunt Sophie catalog her antique collection, dusting off vintage jewelry and learning to spot real gold from cheap knockoffs. She'd smile and say, "You got an eye for detail, Maya. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Meanwhile, Liam coasted through life, using every excuse in the book to dodge responsibility. Forgot his homework? No problem. Mom would write a note. Missed soccer practice? Dad would call the coach to smooth things over. I stopped asking for help with my own schoolwork because I already knew the answer. Maya, you're so independent. You'll figure it out. By senior year, I perfected the art of succeeding quietly. Straight A's? Cool, but not as impressive as Liam making varsity. Winning the state debate championship? Nice, but did you hear Liam scored a goal last week? I even got a perfect SAT score, 1600. Less than 1% of students pull that off. But when I rushed home to share the news, Mom barely looked up from helping Liam with his math homework. "That's great, sweetie," she said. "But can you keep it down?" Liam's studying. Liam glanced up with a smirk. "Yeah, not all of us are walking calculators," he muttered. "I still have that SAT score sheet somewhere. Never made it onto the fridge, though, unlike Liam's C+ in biology, that got the prime spot next to the family vacation photos. College applications were my escape plan. I applied to 15 schools without telling anyone. Harvard, Yale, Stanford, you name it. I wrote every essay, gathered every recommendation, and handled every deadline by myself. When the acceptance letters started rolling in, I kept them locked in a shoebox under my bed. I didn't need Liam turning my success into another reason to feel sorry for himself. The day I got a full-ride scholarship to Columbia, I celebrated by sitting in the library's quietest corner, staring at the acceptance letter until my vision blurred. No family dinner, no proud speeches, just me and a future I could finally claim as my own. When I finally broke the news over dinner, the reaction was predictable. Columbia? Dad frowned. That's so far away. What if Liam needs you? And it's expensive, Mom added. We can't help with tuition. You know how costly Liam's soccer tournaments are. Don't worry, I said, forcing a smile. I got a full scholarship. Tuition, room, board, everything's covered. Oh, Mom said, her smile tight. Well, that's nice. Sweet. Liam chimed in. So, can I have your room when you leave? I need more space for my gaming setup. No congratulations. No, we're proud of you. Just a reminder that I was, as always, the supporting character in someone else's story. That summer, I worked double shifts at a local bookstore to save up for moving expenses. And Sophie slipped me an envelope with $500, whispering, "For new beginnings, don't let anyone hold you back." Move-in day at Columbia came and went without much fanfare. My parents couldn't make the trip because Liam had a soccer tournament, of course. Aunt Sophie was the one who helped me set up my dorm, her eyes shining with pride as she hugged me goodbye. "You're going to do great things, Maya," she whispered. College was freedom. No more being invisible. I threw myself into my studies, majoring in art history with a focus on antique jewelry, something that had always fascinated me. Graduated summa cum laude, not that my parents noticed. They were too busy celebrating Liam's promotion to assistant manager at a local electronics store. But life has a funny way of turning the tables. After graduation, I landed an entry-level job at Kensington and Hall Auction House, a prestigious firm that handled high-end estate sales. My first few months were spent cataloging vintage furniture and porcelain figurines, but then came the Caldwell Estate, a collection of antique jewelry that would change everything. That's where I found it, a seemingly ordinary brooch tucked inside a velvet-lined box. Something about the craftsmanship caught my eye. The weight, the class, the intricate Art Deco design. I spent my lunch breaks researching jewelry markers, comparing the brooch to historical records until I was certain. This wasn't a replica. It was an original Cartier piece from the 1920s, worth tens of thousands. When I presented my findings to my supervisor, Mr. Grant, he raised an eyebrow. "You're sure?" "Positive," I said, heart pounding. The maker's marks matched Cartier's 1925 collection, and the clasp is a classic design used only in their limited editions. A month later, the brooch sold at auction for $58,000, far beyond anyone's expectations. Suddenly, I wasn't just a new girl cataloging furniture. I was a jewelry expert everyone wanted on their team. Promotion after promotion followed as I built a reputation for spotting hidden gems that others overlooked. My commissions grew, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't just scraping by, I was thriving. I saved every penny, determined to build a future that no one could take away from me. My parents, of course, assumed I was still working at some antique shop. Even when I sent the money to help with bills, they believed I was scraping by on ramen noodles. And Liam? He was too busy bragging about his latest gaming setup to notice. But success comes with its own complications. And little did I know, the family I'd spent my whole life trying to escape was about to come crashing back into my world, with demands I never saw coming. Life at Kensington and Hall Auction House changed rapidly after the Caldwell Estate auction. My discovery of the Cartier brooch had elevated my status from the new girl to a rising star in the world of high-end jewelry authentication. No longer stuck cataloging mundane furniture, I was now trusted with assessing rare gemstones, vintage necklaces, and antique rings worth more than most people's yearly salaries. I thrived in the fast-paced environment. Each piece I examined felt like uncovering a piece of history, hidden stories preserved in gold and diamonds. Late nights spent studying antique jewelry guides and online courses had paid off. My commissions were growing, and for the first time in my life, I didn't have to worry about every dollar I spent. Meanwhile, my family remained blissfully unaware of my success. They still believe I worked a small antique shop, barely scraping by while doing what I love. I never corrected them. Let them think what they want, I told myself. Their expectations had always been low, so why should I give them the satisfaction of knowing I'd proven them wrong? Of course, I still sent money home every month. At first, it was $1,000, enough to help with their bills without raising suspicion. But when I found out they were struggling with Liam's student loans and Dad's medical bills, I increased the amount to $5,000. They assumed I was surviving on instant noodles and thrift store clothes to support them, and I let them believe it. If they knew the truth, they'd only find new ways to take advantage of me. Liam, meanwhile, continued to drift through life with the same entitlement he'd had since childhood. After dropping out his first college, he'd bounced from one job to another, never holding anything down for long. Yet, somehow, my parents always found a way to excuse his failures. "He's just finding his path," Mom would say. "Not everyone's as focused as you, Maya." Translation: I was expected to succeed, so that Liam didn't have to. Despite their favoritism, I still attended Sunday dinners out of some twisted sense of obligation. Every week, I endured Mom's passive-aggressive comments about my modest lifestyle and Liam's condescending remarks about my little antique job. But the longer I sat there listening to their thinly veiled insults, the more I realized how little their approval meant to me. I didn't need their praise. I'd built a life they couldn't even imagine, and I'd done it without their help. Then came the Astor Collection. 2 years into my time at Kensington Hall, we received the estate of the late Eleanor Astor, a wealthy socialite whose collection of vintage jewelry was rumored to be worth millions. The moment I laid eyes on the pieces, I knew this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. There were pearl necklaces worn at 1920s galas, sapphire rings gifted by European royalty, and diamond brooches that had once graced the dresses of Hollywood starlets. But hidden among the more ostentatious pieces was something that caught my eye, a delicate gold locket, unassuming yet exquisitely crafted. As I examined it, a familiar excitement sparked in my chest. The craftsmanship was too precise for a mass-produced piece, and the engraving, a tiny rose intertwined with ivy, matched the signature style of a renowned Parisian jeweler from the early 1900s. I spent days researching the locket, cross-referencing design patterns and historical records until I found what I was looking for. The locket was one of only 3 ever made, commissioned by a European duchess in 1908. When the locket went to auction, it sold for $215,000, nearly triple its initial estimate. My reputation as a jewelry authenticator skyrocketed, and with it came even bigger opportunities. Private collectors began seeking me out personally, trusting my eye for overlooked treasures. My commission soared, and within a year, I had saved enough to seriously consider starting my own business. The decision wasn't easy. Kensington and Hall had given me my start, but I knew I'd reached the ceiling of what I could achieve there. Starting my own authentication firm would be a risk. There were already established competitors with decades of experience. But if there was one thing I'd learned from my family, it was that no one was going to hand me success. I had to take it for myself. So I did. I emptied my savings account, took out a business loan, and rented a small office in downtown Boston. The space was modest, just a single room above a coffee shop with creaky floors and unreliable heating. But it was mine. I bought a second-hand desk, a few chairs from Craigslist, and a security safe to store valuable pieces overnight. Building the business was harder than I'd expected. The first few months were filled with sleepless nights and anxiety over whether I'd made the right choice. But word of mouth spread quickly in the antique world, and soon clients began trickling in, local collectors, antique dealers, and even a few private investors who'd heard of my success with the Astor collection. My breakthrough came 6 months later, when a collector brought me a collection of Victorian-era jewelry inherited from her grandmother. Among the pieces was a brooch that had been mislabeled as a reproduction. After days of research, I confirmed it was an original Faberge piece from the late 1800s, one of only a handful still in existence. When the brooch sold at auction for $340,000, my client was so impressed that she referred half her social circle to my business. Within a year, I'd hired my first employee, Chloe, a recent gemology graduate with a passion for antique jewelry. Together, we built the firm from the ground up, establishing a reputation for meticulous research and unparalleled attention to detail. As the business grew, so did my wealth. By the end of the second year, I'd paid off my business loan and purchased a loft apartment overlooking Boston Harbor. I still drove a modest car and dressed simply, but my bank account told a different story, one with 7 figures and growing. Of course, my family remained oblivious. Sunday dinners continued as usual, with Liam bragging about his latest job and Mom dropping hints about their financial struggles. I kept sending money every month, though I doubted much it went toward bills. Judging by Liam's collection of designer sneakers and gaming consoles, I had a pretty good idea where the money was really going. I told myself it didn't matter. As long as I could keep my distance and maintain the facade of a modest antique shop worker, I was safe from their expectations. But deep down, I knew the truth couldn't stay hidden forever. By the time my business hit its 3rd year, my life had transformed beyond anything I could have imagined. The small office above the coffee shop was a distant memory. I now own a sleek space in a downtown high-rise, complete with state-of-the-art security systems and a vault designed to store some of the world's rarest jewelry. My team had grown to include 3 full-time employees, all handpicked for their expertise in antique authentication. Chloe, my first hire, had quickly become my right hand, her passion and attention to detail mirroring my own. Financially, I was more than secure. My bank account had climbed well into 8 figures, thanks to high-profile clients and commissions from multi-million-dollar auctions. Yet, despite my success, I still maintained the facade of the modest antique shop worker when it came to my family. It was easier that way, less drama, fewer expectations. Or so I thought. Everything started to unravel during Thanksgiving weekend. Mom had called a few weeks earlier, her voice heavy with guilt. Honey, I know you're busy with work, but it would mean the world to us if you came home this year. Liam's bringing his girlfriend, and it's been so long since we've all been together. Part of me wanted to say no, to avoid the inevitable evening of thinly veiled criticism and Liam's self-centered bragging. But something in her voice made me pause. Despite everything, a small part of me still craved that sense of belonging I'd never quite found growing up. All right, Mom, I'll be there. The drive back to my childhood home was both familiar and foreign. The tree-lined streets and suburban houses hadn't changed, but I felt like a stranger returning to a life I'd long since outgrown. When I arrived, the scene was exactly as I remembered. Dad in the living room watching football, Mom fussing over the turkey in the kitchen, and Liam holding court at the dining table with his girlfriend, a bubbly blonde named Jessica, who seemed blissfully unaware of my brother's long history of entitlement. Hey, look who finally decided to show up. Liam called out with a smirk. Still working at that little antique shop, huh? Still jumping from job to job? I shot back without missing a beat. Mom's smile faltered. Now, let's not start. I forced a smile and took my seat, determined to get through the evening without incident. For the first hour, everything was fine, if a bit awkward. But as dinner progressed, the conversation inevitably shifted toward money. We've been having a tough time lately, Mom said with a sigh. Between the mortgage and Liam's student loans, it's been hard to keep up. And don't forget the car repairs, Dad added. That old sedan's on its last legs. Liam leaned back in his chair with a grin. Yeah, it's been rough. Good thing Maya's been helping out. Huh? What is it now, $5,000 a month? Jessica's eyes widened. Wait, seriously? You send them that much? I shrugged, feeling everyone's eyes on me. I just help where I can. Well, maybe if you found a better job, you wouldn't have to struggle so much yourself, Mom said, her tone sympathetic but condescending. I opened my mouth to respond, but Liam cut me off with a laugh. Yeah, maybe you could finally afford a car that doesn't look like it's from the last decade. My grip on my fork tightened. I'd endured years of these comments, of being dismissed, overlooked, and taken for granted, but something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the years of unacknowledged success or the fact that I'd spent the past 3 years funding their lifestyle while they continued to belittle me. Or maybe I was just tired of pretending. Setting my fork down, I took a deep breath and met their eyes. You know what? I think it's time we had a little chat. The room fell silent. Even Liam seemed caught off guard by the shift in my tone. I don't work in an antique shop. I own a jewelry authentication firm. One of the most successful in the country, actually. I have offices in 3 cities, a team of experts, and clients who trust me to verify pieces worth millions of dollars. Mom blinked as if she hadn't heard me correctly. What are you talking about? I've been running my own business for the past 3 years, I continued, my voice steady. The money I've been sending you every month, it's barely a drop in the bucket compared to what I make. I could buy this house outright and still have more than enough to retire comfortably. Liam scoffed. Yeah, right. Since when did you become some kind of jewelry tycoon? I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, and opened the banking app. Turning the screen toward them, I let the numbers speak for themselves. Account balance, $12.8 million. Mom gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Dad's eyes widened in shock. Even Liam looked momentarily speechless, though the calculating glint in his eyes told me he was already thinking of ways to benefit from this revelation. Holy! Liam started, but I cut him off. And just to be clear, I added, the only reason I didn't tell you sooner is because I knew exactly what would happen. You'd expect me to bail you out every time something went wrong. And honestly, I'm tired of being treated like an ATM. Mom's face crumpled. But Maya, we're family. Yes, we are, I said, my voice soft but firm. And I've helped as much as I could because I wanted to, but I'm done being taken for granted. Liam recovered quickly, leaning forward with a grin. Come on, sis, don't be like that. I mean, with that kind of money, you could easily help us out a little more. Just a couple million to pay off the mortgage and my student loans. No, I said flatly. His smile vanished. What do you mean, no? I mean, no. I've spent my whole life watching you coast through everything while I had to fight for every scrap of attention and success. I've earned what I have, and I'm not going to let you guilt me into handing it over. Dad finally found his voice. But we're your parents. We raised you. And I'm grateful for that, I said. But raising a child doesn't entitle you to their success. I built this life on my own, and I deserve to enjoy it without feeling like I owe anyone an explanation. Silence settled over the table like a heavy blanket. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had taken control of my own narrative. Not the overlooked daughter, not the invisible sibling, but a woman who had carved her own path and refused to apologize for it. I stood, picking up my coat and slinging it over my shoulders. I think that's enough for one night. Thanks for dinner, Mom. Without waiting for a response, I headed for the door. As I stepped outside into the crisp night air, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I was truly free. The drive back from my parents' house was a blur of city lights and distant memories. My pulse still pounded from the confrontation, but beneath the adrenaline was an unfamiliar sense of freedom. For the first time, I had spoken my truth. No more pretending, no more hiding. Yet, as I approached my apartment, the weight of what I'd said began to settle in. Had I gone too far? Would they ever forgive me? I pushed the thoughts aside. No, I did what I had to do. I owe them nothing. The city skyline glimmered as I parked and made my way upstairs. The silence of my apartment wrapped around me like a long-lost friend. Tossing my keys on the counter, I exhaled, tension draining from my shoulders. The faint hum of my phone vibrating broke the quiet. Mom, Maya, we need to talk. Please call me back. I ignored it. Another buzz. Liam, you think you're better than us because you have money? Don't forget where you came from. With a scoff, I blocked his number. I had no energy for his guilt trips. But the messages kept coming, my parents, distant relatives, even old family friends, all with unsolicited opinions. Uncle Rob, family is about supporting each other. Don't let money come between you and your loved ones. Aunt Susan, your mom and dad sacrificed so much for you. Is it so hard to give a little back? Even childhood friends chimed in, some with words of support, others with thinly veiled judgment. Sarah, hey, I heard what happened. Just remember, you don't owe anyone anything. Proud of you. I clung to that last message, a lifeline in a sea of guilt. 3 days later, I arrived at my office early, hoping to catch up on work and escape the drama. The sleek glass doors of my downtown firm reflected the success I had built from the ground up. Inside, the faint hum of computers and soft conversations provided a familiar comfort. Maya. Chloe intercepted me near the reception desk, her eyes wide with concern. Your family's here. My stomach dropped. What? Who let them in? They told security they had an appointment, she explained, biting her lip. I tried to stop them, but before she could finish, Mom, Dad, and Liam appeared at the end of the hallway. Good morning, I said, my voice cold as steel. This is a place of business. You have no right to be here. Maya, please, Mom began, her eyes red from crying. We just need to talk. I said everything I needed to say at Thanksgiving. Dad stepped forward, his posture tense. We're your family. Don't you think we deserve a little more respect? Respect? I repeated, my voice rising. You mean the respect I got every time you ignored my achievements? Every time you put Liam's needs before mine? I spent years begging for your approval, and now that I've built something for myself, you suddenly care? Liam scoffed. Oh, come on. You're acting like we treated you so badly. Mom and Dad did the best they could. And yet somehow their best always revolved around you. I shot back. But this isn't about the past. This is about you thinking you're entitled to my success. Well, let me make it clear you're not. Maya, Mom pleaded, reaching for my hand. We're not asking for much. Just a little help to get back on our feet. Liam's loans, the mortgage. No, I interrupted firmly. I've already helped more than enough. I sent money every month without question, even when you never once asked if I was okay. but I'm done being treated like a bank. If you need financial help, find another solution, because it won't come from me." Liam's face twisted in anger. "You're so selfish. You have more money than you'll ever need, and you can't even help your own family?" "Selfish." I laughed bitterly. "You have no idea what it took to get here. While you were partying and wasting opportunities, I was working 2 jobs and studying until dawn. I built this life from nothing, without anyone's help. So don't stand there and tell me I owe you anything." Dad's eyes narrowed. "So that's it? You're just going to turn your back on us?" "I'm not turning my back on anyone," I said, "but I am choosing myself for once. I've spent my whole life putting everyone else first. Now it's my turn." Silence thickened the air. Finally, Mom stepped back, tears streaming down her face. "I just don't understand how you can be so cold," she whispered. "I'm not cold, Mom. I'm just done being taken advantage of." I glanced at Liam. "And I'm done funding your lifestyle while you refuse to take responsibility for your own life." Liam's eyes burned with resentment, but I didn't care. "This conversation is over. Please leave." They stood frozen, as if waiting for me to change my mind. But I didn't waver. "Now," I repeated, stepping aside to let them pass. Slowly, they turned and walked toward the elevator. Just before stepping inside, Mom glanced back. "We're still your family, Maya." I met her gaze without hesitation. "And I still love you, but I'm done sacrificing my happiness to make you feel better about your choices." The elevator doors closed, leaving me standing in the hallway, heart pounding in my chest. The aftermath was swift and messy. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from relatives who had suddenly taken a keen interest in my life. Some begged for handouts. Others condemned me for abandoning my family. Even social media wasn't safe. Liam had taken to posting vague, passive-aggressive updates about selfish siblings and money-changing people. His friends, none of whom knew the full story, flooded the comments with sympathy. But as the days passed, the noise began to fade. One by one, the messages slowed until, finally, my phone fell silent. For the first time in years, I could breathe. A month later, I sat in my office late one evening, reviewing authentication reports for an upcoming auction. The city lights sparkled beyond floor-to-ceiling windows, a reminder how far I'd come. A soft knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts. Chloe peeked her head in, her expression hesitant. "There's someone here to see you," she said. "Your grandmother." My heart skipped a beat. "Send her in." Moments later, Grandma Sophie stepped into the room, her eyes crinkling with a warm smile. She looked around, taking in the sleek office and framed awards on the walls. "Well, well," she said with a chuckle. "Look at you." I rose from my desk and crossed the room to hug her tightly. "Grandma, Hush now," she interrupted gently. "I heard what happened, and I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you." Tears stung my eyes as I clung to her. "You've worked hard for everything you have," she continued, her voice steady. "Don't ever let anyone make you feel guilty for that." I pulled back, wiping my eyes. "Thank you. I needed to hear that." She patted my cheek, her eyes shining with pride. "I always knew you were destined for great things. Now go live the life you've earned, and don't look back." That night, as I stood by the window watching the city below, a sense of peace settled over me. I had faced my past, spoken my truth, and broken free from the expectations that had weighed me down for so long. This was my life, built with my own 2 hands. And for the first time, I was living it on my own terms.